Hello again, everyone. This is Austin Johns, recovery specialist and director of Return to Sport for Ortho Virginia. And today I'm going to talk to you about the second principle of return to sport, getting athletes back to their active lifestyle. The difference between overactive and underactive musculature. And today we're going to think about a certain postural position that comes up a lot, particularly if you're sitting at a desk or anything like that. And that's what's called anterior pelvic tilt. You kind of have your rear end stuck out, everything's a little bit short in front. I'm exaggerating here. What happens is the hip flexors end up a little bit short, sometimes the abdominals are a little bit long and weak, and the spinal erectors end up being kind of tight. So when I say those kind of muscles, short, weak, tight, that all goes along with this overactive, underactive principle. What happens is I have opposing muscle groups throughout my entire body. If we think about a normal one, like the biceps and triceps that we're used to, the bicep is opposing to the tricep. Now, if I have an overactive bicep, as in that nervous signal that is telling my bicep to contract, gets to the bicep before the tricep, I'm always going to have this little bit of tension in my bicep every time my tricep tries to extend my arm. That's going to create an imbalance at my shoulder. The same thing happens down here. If I'm in this stuck position, I might have an overactive muscle. In this case, it's probably going to be maybe the quad that's going to be overactive. Sometimes it's the hip flexors. Sometimes it's the lower back, the muscles of the lower back. If I have an overactive muscle or an underactive muscle, I'm always going to start with some sort of a release element. We usually call it self-myofascial release, trigger point, foam rolling, something like that. When I have an overactive muscle, and in this position, I don't really know if the hip flexors are overactive or underactive, but I do know that they're short. So what I want them to do is release and extend, okay? If I can get in there and I can massage that out and get them to release and extend, then I can work with them a little bit better. It's going to position my pelvis properly, and I can operate properly. If I have an underactive muscle, let's say that they're short and they're just not really signaling enough, and they really don't want to extend, same issue. I get in there, massage them out, loosen them up, and I try to get them that length that they should have, all right? In opposition to those hip flexors, I'm also working on the glutes. So whether the glutes are overactive or underactive, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try to get a little release element in there. If they're receiving too much of that nervous signal back in the glutes and hamstrings, then they're holding really tight, and people are frequently going to tell you, God, I got really tight hamstrings. Well, it's not necessarily because the hamstrings are weak, it's just because they're working so hard, because my person is standing like this all the time. Usually we'll get a little bit of rounded position. Everything up the back of my body is working all the time when I'm sitting up or standing up. And that's going to make a lot of fatigue. They're overactive. They're also really tight, but they're still overactive. So to get them to chill out, I'm going to release that a little bit. All right, for the underactive ones, I have a few more things that I need to do. What I really want to do is activate that underactive musculature. So if it's my glutes, which it frequently is if I'm stuck in this position, I really need to stretch these hip flexors to let them relax, stretch those spinal erectors to let them relax, and use these glutes to try to get myself standing up straight using that big, strong musculature. I'm going to work that. I'm going to shorten those muscles to make them a little bit stronger and take some of the stress off that midsection. So that is the difference between overactive and underactive musculature. I hope you got a lot out of this presentation. I'm Austin Johns with Return to Sport, and I want to encourage everybody to get back in the game.